What if the reason reality feels real is because it was designed to? If a civilization advanced enough could one day simulate conscious minds inside a digital universe, how would those minds know they were simulated? They wouldn't. And here is where it stops being science fiction. We are already close to simulating simple environments with autonomous agents that respond, adapt, and behave in ways their creators did not explicitly program. We are decades, perhaps centuries, away from simulating something genuinely conscious. But the direction is clear. Now think forward. If humanity survives long enough to become a truly advanced civilization, the computing power available to it would be incomprehensible by today's standards. Running one simulation of a conscious world would be trivial. Running thousands would be equally easy. Running millions would cost almost nothing. That is the setup for the idea that changes everything. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom at Oxford University published a paper that was politely devastating. He argued that one of three things must be true. First, almost every civilization reaches a point where it could simulate conscious minds, but chooses not to, or destroys itself before it gets there. Second, advanced civilizations can simulate conscious minds but have no interest in doing so. Third, we are almost certainly living inside a simulation right now. The logic is brutal in its simplicity. If simulations are possible and civilizations run them, the number of simulated minds will eventually outnumber biological ones by an astronomical margin, which means any mind that finds itself conscious and asking questions is statistically far more likely to be simulated than original. Bostrom himself does not know which option is true. He has said so publicly, but he has also said the question cannot be dismissed by anyone who takes probability seriously. Elon Musk has stated publicly that the odds we are in base reality are 1 in billions. Neil deGrasse Tyson has said the idea deserves serious consideration. These are not fringe thinkers, but here is where most people stop. They hear the argument, find it interesting, file it under philosophy, and move on. Because surely they think physics would tell us. Surely the universe feels too real, too vast, too indifferent to be constructed. But the strangest evidence does not come from philosophy, it comes from physics. Because physics, at its deepest level, does something that solid matter should not do. It behaves like information. Not like information in a loose, poetic sense. Like information in a precise, technical, mathematical sense that physicists have been quietly unsettled by for decades. Here is what the universe looks like up close. Everything you can touch, everything you can see, everything that feels permanent and physical is made of atoms, and atoms are made of particles, and particles at the quantum level do not behave like tiny solid objects sitting in fixed locations. They behave like probability clouds. A particle does not have a definite position until it is measured. Before measurement, it exists as a spread of possibilities, a wave of potential states that collapses into one specific location only at the moment of observation. This is not a theory. This is the most precisely tested and confirmed framework in the history of science. Quantum mechanics works. Its predictions are accurate to 11 decimal places, and what it describes is a reality that does not fully exist until something interacts with it. That is not how solid, fundamental matter should behave. That is how a system behaves when it is only rendering what is being observed. And this is where the physicists get uncomfortable, because the idea that reality is informational, that the universe is not made of things but of relationships between measurements, has been seriously proposed not by philosophers but by physicists. John Archibald Wheeler, one of the most important theoretical physicists of the 20th century, spent the final decades of his career arguing for what he called it from bit. The idea that every particle, every field, every physical quantity derives its existence from information, not that information describes reality. That information is reality. Now consider what that means. If the universe is fundamentally informational, if reality at its smallest scale is not matter but measurement, then the distinction between a simulated universe and a real one becomes genuinely difficult to define. A real universe made of information, a simulated universe made of information. At the level of the particle, at the level of the quantum, what is the actual difference? That is not a rhetorical question. Physicists have asked it seriously, but here is where it gets stranger. The universe has rules. Not guidelines, not tendencies. Precise, universal, mathematical rules that apply everywhere at all times, without exception. The laws of physics are not approximations. They are exact. They are the same in every direction, on every planet, at every moment in the history of the cosmos. No one knows why. In a universe that arose from randomness and chaos, there is no obvious reason the laws of physics should be elegant, symmetrical, and consistent. But they are, suspiciously so, mathematically beautiful in ways that feel less like accident and more like architecture. And then there is the speed of light. Nothing with mass can reach it. Nothing can exceed it. It is an absolute limit, a hard ceiling on how fast anything can move, or how quickly information can travel across the universe. That is an unusual thing for a fundamentally physical reality to have. Limits are what computational systems have. Rules are what code has. Boundaries are what systems have when something outside them is managing the processing cost. The speed of light may simply be the universe's maximum processing speed. Now here's the part that nobody talks about enough. Even if all of this is true, even if reality is informational and ruled by mathematical code and bounded by universal limits, it does not answer the deepest question. Who is experiencing it? Because here's the problem with simulation theory that most people skip past. If the universe is a simulation, then the conscious minds inside it are still conscious. The experience of reading these words right now, the sensation of awareness, the fact that there is something it feels like to be you, is not made less real by being computational. That experience is still happening. And consciousness, as philosophers and neuroscientists have repeatedly discovered, is the one thing that is not reduced neatly into physics. We can explain neurons. We can map brain activity. We cannot explain why any of it produces the sensation of existing. David Chalmers, one of the most respected philosophers of mind alive, has argued that even in a simulated universe, the consciousness inside it would be genuine. The experience would be real. The meaning would be real. Which leads to the most unsettling possibility of all. What if the simulation was not built to model a universe? What if it was built to generate consciousness? What if the physics, the stars, the billions of years of cosmic history, the whole elaborate architecture of existence was a container built for one specific output? Awareness. What if the universe is not fake? What if it is exactly as real as it needs to be because information is real and experience is real, and you are not a passenger inside a constructed world? What if you are the reason it was constructed at all? What if the question was never whether the universe is real? What if the universe is real because information is real? What if you are not trapped inside a simulation? What if consciousness is the reason the simulation exists at all? So, what do you think? Leave your theory below. Subscribe for more impossible questions.